Welcome to the first episode of From Leah with Love, a heart-centered talk show highlighting people and places that inspire, radiate love, and give hope. Today we're going to visit Ventura County Animal Services Shelter. We're going to learn about the services they provide, and as well as information about fostering and adoption. Your best friend could be waiting for you right now. We are also taking submissions for future guests. If you or someone you know would love to be featured on the show, please email from leahwithlove@gmail.com. Well, it looks like it's time to go. Gotta put on my ears and change my clothes for our trip to the animal shelter. Come on, let's go. I'm so excited to be here at Ventura County Animal Services, and I am in the cat room with Carla Faulkner, the shelter manager, and thank you so much for letting me be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for coming.
And your shelter provides so many more services than just housing animals. You have low-cost vaccine clinics throughout Ventura County. You provide information on licensing pets, and in fact, my dog received a free microchip here last year. So is there anything more that you provide here? I know you also have adoption and fostering programs as well.
Oh yeah, we do a lot for the community as well. In the event that something happens to an owner, and this is not a well-known tidbit, but when something happens to an owner and they're not able to care for their pet, let's say a medical emergency, their animal can be brought here for safekeeping. So it's not unusual for us to have a dog or a cat that we're trying to reunite with family members of the owner, or the owner when they are recovered or out of their situation that has caused them unable to provide care for their pet.
What are some of the advantages of adopting a dog or cat?
Oh, there's a lot of advantages. First off, the animals that are adopted from the shelter here will be spayed or neutered, so there won't be any unforeseen accidents that could lead to more pet overpopulation. And by adopting, they're helping reduce pet overpopulation. The animal will have its vaccines administered before it's adopted. It'll have flea and worm treatment, be microchipped, and we'll start them on their appropriate licensing schedule. So the adopted animal's off to a good start.
Now, do you provide low cost, or do you help people with vaccines for their animals?
We do have monthly vaccine clinics that are located throughout the county. Our schedule is online at vcas.us. So once a month we're at different locations providing low-cost vaccines and microchips, and our licensing team is present to help get people in compliance. It is state law that animals are vaccinated against rabies. One of our biggest mandates by the state is to control and prevent a rabies outbreak, which would be disastrous to humans. It is one of the diseases that is zoonotic, and by that we mean that animals can give it to humans and multiple other species. So licensing your pet and having it vaccinated against rabies helps control a disease that used to, just cause a lot of suffering and death in animals and be very dangerous for people.
Oh, wow. So you said it's the law to have the animals vaccinated. What about a license? Do you have to have a license for your animal?
It is state law. It's just like driving on the road. You can have a car, but it needs to be registered to be on the road.
Right.
And that registration, helps pay for the roads to be kept and maintained, and other the signage and all the things that we take for granted in our wonderful country on the road. So your licensing of your pet is a requirement, and it does provide the services that we provide. Then in the event that there's an animal that is loose and dangerous, we respond to those calls. Our officers are trained and very skilled in apprehending these animals and getting them off the street so that they're not a danger to the general person. We also do respond to neglect cases, cruelty cases. There's a lot that our officers do to make sure animals in Ventura County are cared and provided for. And so those services are are partly funded by the licensing that we do.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. I did not know that about the licensing. Now, let's say somebody finds an animal running around. What is the process here? Can they bring that animal to you?
Oh, most certainly, most certainly. So if they don't have any kind of identification or microchip, the typical animal will be held for 4 days on what we call a stray hold. That allows the owner time to hopefully reunite with their pet. In the event that they do not come, then they will be made available for adoption. And if there is a microchip, a tag, or a license, then the chance of the owner being reunited is dramatically increased. So that's the other thing a license does provide is identification. If they're wearing that tag, it does provide identification so that we have their information in our database and we can call them and say, hey, your pet is here. If they're licensed and they've never been here before, their first trip through is no fees. So they can get reclaimed without a impound fee and the board fees here. There may be other fees that are incurred if they're not altered and such, but the license does get them what we call a ticket home. And microchips, we do research, so we do have people that are trained in calling microchip data companies and then trying to find how we can contact that owner. So it's real important to have some kind of identification on your animal so that it gets home to you safely. And I'm really glad that we provide the service of keeping the animal off the street. Sometimes the animals that are brought into us as a stray are injured, and they got out and they got in the way of a car. And so when they come in here without any injuries, I'm always grateful that somebody or one of our officers brought them into us, and we are taking care of their well-being until we can get them back to their home or into a new home.
Oh, so adoption. You're leading me into adoption. So how does that work? Now, what would happen, though, if somebody they knew that their pet was here, it took a while, but then that animal was adopted out. So, I mean, does that happen sometimes? So,
well, briefly, so I'm sorry, I did not emphasize the fact that when we do have a microchip or a tag, we do extend that hold for 10 days.
Oh, okay.
So we do have a longer hold on that animal, giving an owner more time to reunite with their pet. It is on our adoption paperwork that in the event an owner shows up before the animal has left the facility, the owner can still reclaim their animal. There are fees incurred, so they would have to pay all the fees to reclaim their animal. Again, like I said, daily boarding, there's impound fees. There is a state fee that comes into effect if they're not spayed or neutered. Because of pet overpopulation, spaying and neutering is a big problem that most people don't make sure their animals are spayed and neutered. So the state fee, it serves kind of as a little bit of a penalty to encourage people to be in compliance with spaying and neutering. We do have the ability to offer vouchers that would help to go towards the fees of spaying and neutering. So we do have a few low-cost spay and neuter clinics in the county. One of them is Simi Valley Nonprofit Spay and Neuter. The other one is Mercy Crusade Spay and Neuter in Oxnard. And they do accept our vouchers, and that will help to cut down a little bit on the cost of getting their animal altered.
Right, yeah. So there's really no excuse to not be spayed or neutered. I mean,
there really isn't, and it's such a cultural belief. We battle in some of the areas of the county cultural beliefs that some of the Latino culture maybe doesn't feel like they want to neuter their male dog because the man in the family doesn't want to think of doing that to his male dog. Some of these cultures as well, it's just not typical to take care of their pet that way, to think about spaying and neutering. You bring a cat home so it can eat the mice that are out in the yard, and you don't necessarily think about the fact that in 6 months she may have a litter of kittens, and then those kittens have kittens, and those kittens have kittens. So we really do need to get the education out there. It makes for a better pet, a better family member. A lot of the animals that come in here and a lot of the injured animals that come in here are unaltered. They are not spayed or neutered. This is the time of year. It's spring, so they are smelling spring in the air, and if they're in a backyard alone but they can smell something in the breeze, they're going to want to get out and go have a little spring fling. And that's a very common scenario that gets them into trouble and gets them here. When you spay or neuter, that animal's no longer worried about biological urges.
Yeah.
And now, just wants to be the baby in the family and isn't so worried about going on adventures.
Yeah. Hi. Yes.
Hi,
Yes.
Cobain kitty.
So cute. So let's see. Where were we? So, the adoption process. So with that, you can just come in. Do you scope out the area and see what animal you want?
So a lot of our experienced adopters watch the website. People may be in the market for a certain type of animal. The puppies are the hardest to come by. The puppies come in little spurts, little handfuls, and they're in high demand. So there is kind of a little bit of a competitive factor to be that person that gets that puppy. You can go to our website and you can go to Pet Harbor and have it tell our system to notify you if a certain type of animal comes into our facility. And you'll get a notification via email that we have such a breed or such a description of an animal. Otherwise, yes, you can come here and you can walk the grounds. We do have kennel cards up that show if an animal is available for adoption or if they're in that holding period waiting for an owner or the stray period. If they then see an animal they're interested in meeting, they go to the front counter and we use what's called a meet your match form that's put out by the ASPCA. So we want to match a person with an animal that's going to fit into their family. We don't want an animal that's going to go in and be disruptive. So if you want someone that's going to hang out on the couch with you, then we want to get you that kind of dog or cat that's going to just relax with you. If you have a little more energy, then that high energy dog or that younger cat or maybe a kitten may be a better fit. So our adoption counselors use the Meet Your Match form to have a good conversation so that we can try to, again, knowing the animal and seeing the adopter's lifestyle, try to make a good match. And then the process continues to the show. We call it an animal show. So we will then take you out to meet the animal that you're interested in. The dogs will go out to the little exercise yards and the cats will be introduced over in their rooms. And if all goes well, then we can go to the front counter and proceed with the adoption paperwork. Some animals, if they're already spayed or neutered, could actually go home that day. Some animals may need to stay for their spay or neuter surgery, and we'll give a date when they can be picked up.
Aww.
And in those cases, it's a good time to go shopping and maybe get some supplies and get prepared for your new family member.
Gosh, I would want every single animal in here. Hi! Oh, that would be tough. To come in here and see all these animals. How long have you been doing this for?
I've worked here for 8 years. I worked in the veterinary office for 8 years, and they're all my babies.
Yes.
And we love them. Everyone that works here, we love them like our own while they're here, and give them the affection and the care that they need. Our volunteers are amazing. We have volunteers that come in here as I'm leaving from work in the evening. I'll be leaving and they're coming in to walk dogs and to do laundry and just do numerous things that are needed for the well-being and the happiness of our residents here.
And how can you sign up to be a volunteer?
It's on our website, so there is a volunteer application on our website, and from there you'll be directed to some training. So there'll be some hands-on training, and then there will be activities that you can sign up for. Depends on your level of involvement. We have retired people that come in and just do laundry and maybe stuff brochures and do some pretty relaxed kind of chores around here. If you want to get real active, there are dog handling classes and dog and cat handling classes, and that will give the person the ability then to actually take a dog out of the kennel and walk it around, or maybe even walk it around the block or in the park next door.
Do you have to do an orientation before you do any type of volunteer?
Yes, you do. I do believe it's online these days. I think it's an online kind of a program, and then you do some training, hands-on training with the volunteer coordinator.
Wow.
And then some of the programs will be opened up.
I also hear a lot about fostering animals. So, what is that really? Because I don't know.
That's another thing. God bless our fosters. So, for the many animals that come in healthy and available to adopt right away, there's many more that come in that are not available to adopt right away, either because of age, maybe they're too young, puppies or kittens that actually still need to be bottle fed, or be fed what we call gruel until they're of an adoptable age, which is about 2 months of age. Other times they come in with medical conditions that either maybe they just don't look so attractive, and we can help that medical condition, given a little bit of time to get them into a recovery state where they might be more adoptable, to someone looking at them, or they may have a medical condition that we need to help improve again so that they would be a more adoptable candidate. So our fosters work hand in hand with our veterinary office, and so they provide the hands-on care, giving medication, special diets, and they will actually come and go between here and their home, bringing the animal in for its checkups and getting new medications or getting new treatment plans by the vet office until they are improved for and ready for adoption. Some of the fosters actually promote their animals, so they may take their dogs out with them hiking or doing things and try to introduce them to people where they might get adopted. A lot of our cat fosters will actually use social media and Facebook and try to get those kittens out there, or cats out there, again, to try to find that special home for them to go to. And sometimes they get rehabbed enough to where they just come back here and then become available for adoption.
So if you're going to foster, you should make sure that your home available to provide for them. The sick, I guess I would say, maybe the sick one.
A lot of our fosters actually work. Our veterinary office is here on Saturdays, here until, the veterinary team is here until 6 in the evening, and we are here early in the morning. Some people will drop off the animal on their way to work, and then we'll talk to them on the phone, and then they can come by and pick the animal up after work. So you don't need to be just an at-home person. Our kitten fosters, if you're talking about bottle babies, some of those people either may be at home or may have a job where they can take that little carrier of kittens with them to work and take breaks every couple hours to bottle feed those babies. But most of our fosters have lives outside of here. And we try to make things work to coordinate with them to get things taken care of.
That is so good to know, because I always thought I didn't know too much about fostering, but I did think that in order to foster, you can't do anything else but that. So I'm so glad to know that, because now I want to do that.
Sometimes it's as simple as a dog that needs medication 2 or 3 times a day and a medicated bath because maybe it has a really bad skin condition. Sometimes we have things like ringworm, which ringworm can be contagious to humans. So nobody wants to adopt the cat that's going to give them, a case of ringworm. Yeah. So if the foster has a sanitary space that they can keep the kitty in, give it its medication daily, do some special dips twice a week, it keeps the cat out of here for the 4, 6, 8 weeks it needs to recover, and then can come back and be ready for adoption. That's the one thing that we need around here a lot is time and space. So if that animal's in somebody's home, it's giving us space because now that cage or kennel is open up for another animal. And then time, there's only so many of us running around giving medication and doing treatments. So for each person that's even taking care of one pet, that's made a tremendous difference in what the shelter has to do each day.
Do you have to do a certain time for fostering? I mean, if you're taking it in, what if you can't keep them for us? Like maybe you were saying, I could do 8 weeks, and then you end up can do 4.
Oh, that happens quite often. So our foster program, again, the application is online, and there are orientations, hands-on orientations that are held here and at our CME shelter. And some people only foster a certain kind of animal. Maybe they only foster cats, or they only do the kittens during the kitten season. sometimes people will start fostering and then they're going on a vacation, and they'll have to communicate with us that they're going to be gone for a while, or that they can no longer foster animals. So we very much accommodate, and most of the way that we communicate with our fosters is through Facebook and media. So we'll get an animal in and we'll say, hey, we need a foster for this animal, and this is what it's going to entail. And so people can then say, yeah, I want to do that one, or no, that's not going to work with my schedule. I'll wait for the next one.
Well, I think I'm going to have to sign up. I mean, I'm so glad to get this information, because it would be amazing. Now, how do you tell, if you already have an animal, how can you be sure they would get along? That's the hardest part. Even for if you're adopting or fostering, you have to know.
It's true. Introductions is a very key part of taking an animal home. Usually your smaller breed dogs that may not be as much of an issue are larger breed dogs. We do have some of the dogs that may not be so dog friendly, and so we may try to find a one dog only foster, or maybe they have a cat, and the dog will be okay with the cat. Yeah. So, but definitely introducing them. Sometimes we do what we call meet and greets, where they'll bring their animal over and we'll introduce them and see how that goes. There are tricks like what we call a pack walk. So rather than taking the dog straight into your home, you have another family member walk the dog down the street from you, and you bring the other dog and you take a walk around the block. And so they can meet outside of a territorial environment to lighten up the interaction. Awesome. So there are a lot of little tips and tricks. Sometimes these animals need to be confined. Maybe they have a medical condition where there was a broken leg or something. So using crates and playpens to keep them confined and separate can also be a tool that works.
Now, do you have any successful adoption stories that you would like to share?
We do. I was thinking of a few earlier this morning. So some of our complicated medical cases that come in here are the most joyful adoptions, because not everybody wants to come down here and find out that the animal they're going to take home is going to cost them $100 in insulin a month, and $300 in blood work every 6 months, and a special diet that may cost $60 every month. So I had this one dog last year. Her name was Nala, and she was a big bull mastiff dog. Big.
Where did you find? Where did you get that?
So her owner brought her in for euthanasia. So they brought her in to be euthanized, and that is something that we do provide the community. If they cannot go to their veterinarian or have the animal euthanized, we can do that here, because one of our primary goals is to reduce animal suffering, right? And provide for care. And sometimes humane euthanasia is an act of love. So she was skinny. She was so skinny. Her ribs stuck out like washerboards. She was emaciated. And again, they brought her in for euthanasia. They were not able to go any further with her care. She was only about 4 or 5 years old. And that's not horribly old for a mastiff. They usually will live to be at least around 10 years old. So I gave her some food to eat to see if she was hungry, and she wolfed that food right down. So I knew that she wanted to get nutrients in her body, but for whatever reason, something wasn't happening with the uptake of the nutrients into her body. So I told the people I was going to deny the euthanasia request, and if they wanted to surrender her to us here at the shelter, that we would take her in. And our veterinarian then stepped in on the case. With blood work, we determined that she was diabetic. And there was a long, kind of rocky road, several months of rocky road of trying to get her diabetes regulated. We started her on insulin. She kept having high blood sugar. We put her on diets that would kind of regulate the sugar uptake into her body. And it took some work, and rechecking blood work. But we finally had her gaining weight, and she was sweet as could be, Miss Nala. And now we were, on the quest for an adopter. We've done our part. We know how to take care of her. Let's see if we can get somebody else to continue providing for her. And thank goodness a lady that owned a ranch came forward, and she talked with us more than once, and I valued that she didn't go into this blindly. She really wanted to discuss it and make sure it was going to be something she could do. Because again, it's not for everybody to step in on a case like this. So Nala is now in her home. She's a roly-poly, pudgy dog. Not too pudgy, but she's put on weight. And they have, continued to provide her care. More recently, we had Iceberg, a husky, a young husky, less than 2 years old, a male dog, unneutered, who came in with a broken leg. And it was his front leg that was shattered. And we do not do orthopedic surgeries here. We do a lot here, but we do not have some of the specialist care that you can find at very unique specialist practices. So through a grant from our Ventura County Animal Services Foundation, we were able to send him to an orthopedic surgeon and have his leg pinned. But now he has 8 weeks of recovery time. And again, time and space is important here. Yes. A foster stepped up, took him home, kept him confined because he needed to be restricted so that those bones could mend. And he had to go through follow-up rechecks, and eventually the little external pins were removed and he was neutered, and he did find a home. He went home adopted and neutered, and hopefully staying in his backyard in his home.
Oh, that's awesome. I love stories like that. I'm sure you see that a lot. Good stories.
It's why I'm still here.
Yeah.
The good stories are so much more than anything that's sad about this place. There's nothing sad about this place, and I get people that come in here, oh my gosh, it's so sad, I don't know how you can do what you can do. And I know the animals here, again, like I told you, they're cared for, they're fed, they're loved, they're safe. What's sad is sometimes what happens before the animal gets here. Sometimes a gate will blow open, or a fence will fall down, or something will happen, and some animal will wander onto the streets and be picked up by our officers or by a stranger and be brought here. And they are in such bad shape or have such a badly neglected medical condition that I thank the heavens that they were able to get free and come here and we could help them.
That's awesome.
And to see these animals get treatment, and they're sad, and you could just see in their eyes they're miserable, and like a week later they're perking up, and 2 weeks later they're wagging their tail and they're looking like an animal that you want to cuddle with and hug. It's amazing, and getting that to a home.
Oh, yeah, that just warms my heart. Like I said, I would want all of them. All of them. I would take them home. So I appreciate the time that you spent with me, and I love hearing all the stories, and I really do hope that we could get the word out there for more people to, foster. You don't have to adopt. You can foster and just help this organization thrive and help these little animals be happy and change their lives too. And also, animals will definitely change your life. So thank you so much, Carla. I had fun. This is good. I had a lot of information. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed our segment at Ventura County Animal Services. I don't know about you, but I saw some of the most adorable cats and the cutest little dogs just waiting to find the perfect home. If you haven't done so already, please visit their website and find your best friend today. And thank you for joining us for our very first episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you for the next one. Have a beautiful day.